Hello, everyone. Welcome to a Fantasy Football Rankings podcast. Today, we're going to cover the rankings for the 2020 season. Important to note, this is for PPR standard settings. This is for a redraft league. We will do a dynasty probably in the near future. That's actually the style that I play the most. Just some little housekeeping to get underway. So we have yellow here. Yellow highlight means underrated. That can mean anything from, as we'll discuss with Ezekiel Elliott, one pick difference to, I think it's several difference. Green, I view these people in the same tier, so we can see this with Michael Thomas and DeAndre Hopkins. You can go either way with these picks. And blue, I would consider that a dangerous pick. However, there's not enough statistical data to warrant moving them down even further. The last thing I will note, you'll see the separation. This is kind of the tiers that I see players. And more or less, if a player is in the same tier, they are the same. However, for example, if you get the number one pick, you're drafting Christian McCaffrey. I see Ezekiel Elliott strongly above Saquon Barkley. We'll get into that a little bit. But at the same time, drafting Saquon over him is not terrible. The reason, for the green being literally the same tier is that there's a strong argument to be made that DeAndre Hopkins will be better than Michael Thomas this year and vice versa. We'll get into that more as we go along. So we're going to break it down quickly for each tier, go through it. Quick notes. This list was made using the available ESPN ranking tiers from Matthew Berry and Eric Carabell. So most of the yellow underrated go off of one or both of theirs, as well as a bunch of the blue dangerous picks go from where, I personally wouldn't draft them. So to kick it right off, as I said, if you get the number one pick, draft Christian McCaffrey. The reason I see Ezekiel Elliott over Saquon Barkley is the guaranteed workload. Especially, this is going to sound counterintuitive, but with the addition of CeeDee Lamb, I see the Cowboys offense being even better than traditionally. And I think we're all quick to forget just how statistically dominant Ezekiel Elliott is when he plays fully. We're talking 1,200 yards. We're talking double-digit touchdowns, 1,200 rushing yards, that is. And that floor, as well as the simple fact that, he's probably going to get 20 touches week in, week out. That floor combined with that ceiling is something that I really don't think Saquon can match, and it's not even Saquon's talent. It is the talent around him. Specifically, I'm discussing the offensive line difference. I'm discussing the difference in tight ends. Specifically for the Giants, you have Evan Ingram, who is not really known as a blocker, versus Blake Jarwin on the other end, who is more of a blocker. He's not really much of a receiver. I see the Giants offense being very, very good. That's why I still have Saquon at 3. But I would go with Ezekiel Elliott at the number 2 slot. And I highlighted him as underrated because, I've seen many rankings, specifically before Dalvin Cook threatened the holdout, where Ezekiel Elliott was 4th. And I think he is, a little bit ahead. I think he's a clear number 2 pick. All right, going into the second tier here with Alvin Kamara, Dalvin Cook, and Derrick Henry. Dalvin Cook, simply put, he is knocked down a little bit for the threat of the holdout, which we just discussed a little bit. But at the same time, I would have ranked him below Kamara anyway. Kamara played much of last season with nagging injuries. You could tell in his elusiveness. That's what really took a hit. In my mind, he was getting hit and not breaking tackles at the same rate that he was as a rookie. Obviously, running backs are going to get beat up, but I really do see Alvin Kamara being, better than Dalvin Cook from a fantasy perspective. His touchdowns took a significant hit, and that's just something that's not sustainable with the way that the Saints offense can move the football up and down the field. Versus, I think the Vikings as a team, you could argue that Justin Jefferson for Stephon Diggs is a wash, but I think they're going to be a little bit of a worse team overall. And anytime you're a worse offense, your running back's going to suffer for it. specifically because you're now going to see that bracketed coverage that was used on Diggs is going to go to Thielen. That's going to limit him a little bit. That's going to limit Kirk Cousins. That's just going to limit the offense as a whole. It really is. I see Dalvin Cook taking a minor step back. I'm not saying, we're dropping him out of the first round, but I do see him taking a step back. Derrick Henry highlighted at 6. I would have put Derrick Henry over Dalvin Cook had he not signed his lucrative, 4-year extension. And the reason for that is, we always talk about running back shelf life. Fantasy players, we're kind of in tune with that and kind of understand. We know, the age 24, age 25, the difference between the years. But Derrick Henry on a franchise tender is different because the team doesn't have incentive to keep him for a long term. Obviously, with the long-term extension now signed, that is no longer a factor where the team does have interest in keeping him healthy for multiple years. Basically, if he was on a franchise tender, I could see him, no joke, touching the ball, 250 plus times in the season, which sounds absolutely absurd, but I could really, really see them force feeding him the ball, similar to a Christian McCaffrey, who also just signed an extension. I think McCaffrey is kind of immune to that until proven otherwise. But I still have Derrick Henry at 6. This is PPR, like I said, but I think people are knocking him a little too much for not catching the football. He really doesn't need to catch the football. He's massive in yards after contact. He's going to get generated carries, and that's what the Tennessee Titans want to do. And spoiler alert for a little bit later, I expect the Titans to actually be very good with Tannehill under center. If this was a actual football podcast, I would be picking the Tennessee Titans to win the AFC South. So I expect the Titans to be very good. Derrick Henry is going to be a big force in that. I expect he led the league in rushing last year. I expect a strong repeat performance from him, top 5 rushing, pending injury, obviously, as well as double-digit touchdowns. No, and that to me is a no-brainer over the next tier. Michael Thomas and DeAndre Hopkins, our first wide receivers. Many rankings that you will see have Michael Thomas in the top 5, and talent-wise, he's up there, as well as DeAndre Hopkins. If I'm picking, they are 1A, 1B wide receiver-wise, as you can see, with a significant drop to the next receiver. However, it's easier to get good wide receivers. Not great, not Michael Thomas, DeAndre Hopkins, but it's easier to get good wide receivers late than it is to get a serviceable running back. That is why, if I'm in the first round, we're talking 10, 12-person league, which is more or less standard size. If I'm not getting Michael Thomas or DeAndre Hopkins, I'm drafting a running back. And I'm not considering Michael Thomas and DeAndre Hopkins in the first half of the first round. I think running back is just too important. You run out too quickly. And that really sums up that quite nicely. Don't get me wrong. If you come out with Michael Thomas or DeAndre Hopkins in your first round, your wide receiver core is going to be absolutely phenomenal. As you'll see, we're talking, you could have guys who I could make an argument that will be wide receiver 1, will be in the top 10 wide receivers down in the 30s and 40s. So your wide receiver group will be incredible. However, you're going to struggle at running back, and I think that is the big issue with that. The next tier, 3 running backs: Nick Chubb, Aaron Jones, Josh Jacobs. All guys producing at a high level. However, all guys with some question marks. Nick Chubb, the addition of Kareem Hunt. If you had him in fantasy last year, you kind of saw that where he dropped off. Not a lot, but he definitely dropped more into a high-end RB2 than a true RB1. And, if you're drafting him 9th overall, you're drafting him as an RB1, and you need that production for a full season. It's a risky position to be in. Personally, I would go with the next 2 above him. However, I did rank Nick Chubb ahead because, to me, Nick Chubb has the better option, especially with the addition of Kevin Stefanski to that coaching staff. I definitely see Nick Chubb being I call him a dangerous pick because he could go one of 2 ways. He could truly be top 5 running back, or he could struggle to be top 20. And that's not an exaggeration. He definitely has the widest range. Aaron Jones, what are we worried about with him? We're worried about Matt LaFleur, quite honestly. The Aaron Jones finally gets unleashed for a full year. We all saw what he did, running back 4. Will he do it again? You know, LaFleur's already on record saying that he wants to get Jamal Williams more involved. The Packers drafted, you know, a mid-tier running back, and you're just like, come on, man. Come on. Just let Aaron Jones run the ball, man. Just let him do what he's good at doing. Touchdown regression is going to be a thing. You know, I don't think we're going to see him 15-plus touchdowns again this year. You know, double digits not out of the question, but 15-plus is definitely going to be a stretch. And in general, you know, I think the Packers' identity is going to change a little bit. I don't think we're going to see a run and gun team anymore. I think we're going to see a defense first team. Their defense is really what carried them to an NFC North title last year, and it's going to be a thing again. So in a way that gets him more running opportunities, but it's also going to mean lower scoring games, less touchdowns, and probably less receptions for Aaron Jones. And that's why, you know, I have him as a fringe running back 1. Josh Jacobs is the one I'm most optimistic about. In keeping with trends, I think the Raiders are going to take a pretty significant step forward. I think the AFC West is probably going to be the second most competitive division in the entire league behind the NFC South. Josh Jacobs is going to be a big part of that. And I can't say enough good stuff about the guy. I could see him, you know, leaping in. You know, this time around next year, we're talking about him as a potential top 5 pick. That is how good I think Josh Jacobs can be. However, you know, he's still second year. The Raiders still have Derek Carr under center. You know, we're not talking about the rest of the division, you know, with Patrick Mahomes under center. But more than anything, you know, he still has to play defenses that are very good. The Chargers defense is very, very good, as is the Denver Broncos. And that is something to keep in mind here. This next tier right here, completely highlighted green, you can make arguments for all of them. You can make arguments against all of them. Again, I have the running back first. That goes right back to what I was saying, that it's much harder to find running back help later. Joe Mixon's going to get touches. You think about, you know, Joe Burrow, rookie, under center. Rookie quarterback's best friend is a good running game. He's going to get touches. I think getting Jonah Williams back from injury significantly going to help that offensive line. I could see Joe Mixon. I see him as, at worst, you're getting a high-end running back too with Joe Mixon. I think, you know, a top 15 finish at a running back position is easily within reach, as well as, you know, you could see him finishing, you know, top 8, top 6. That combination, to me, warrants picking him ahead of the other 3 simply because of position played. I think in terms of total points, I think in terms of weekly production, I would expect the next 3 to do better. Davante Adams, Tyreek Hill, Julio Jones, fantastic receivers. Draft whichever one you feel most comfortable with. For me, that would be Davante, and that is, again, back to the Packers. He is their receiving target. I don't understand how you walk out of the draft and still don't get Aaron Rodgers help, but Davante Adams is the receiver in Green Bay, getting force-fed the ball. That is why I rank him higher. He's going to get more targets. He's probably going to get more catches as a result. Tyreek Hill, you know, we kind of know what Tyreek Hill is at this point. I just think the Chiefs are going to spread the ball around a lot more. However, there's a lot more scoring that's going to happen in Kansas City. And then the Falcons are a very interesting team to rate from a fantasy perspective because I think there's so many good, talented players. You know, just as an aside here, and we'll get to Calvin Ridley here in just a little bit, I could see Calvin Ridley, you know, arguing for, you know, strong wide receiver 2 territory without Julio Jones around. And so on any given week, you know, if Julio Jones gets the coverage that he deserves, which is bracketed coverage on every snap, Calvin Ridley's going to be the target because that man is a number 1 wide receiver masquerading as a wide receiver 2. And just that weekly inconsistency, you know, there are multiple teams who are going to say, look, Julio's not going to beat us, and Matt Ryan's going to be perfectly fine with that, and Calvin Ridley's going to have, you know, 8 catches, 100 yards, and 2 touchdowns, something like that. So Julio Jones, to me, carries a little bit inherent risk with that simply because the Falcons are really, really good. This next tier, this is where you want to be, in my opinion. You want, you know, obviously you want one of these 3 guys right here to start your draft. Awesome. And any of these would be great to have. I think Austin Eckler, I think there's a strong argument to be made that Austin Eckler should move up into this tier. He's that good. He has been that good. We just haven't been paying attention because of the presence of Melvin Gordon. What knocks him a little bit is, despite the fact that I think Phillip Rivers did not have the greatest year last year, teams still respected Phillip Rivers in a way that they're not going to respect either Tyrod Taylor or, Justin Herbert. However, the presence of Tyrod Taylor as a running quarterback, I think, would knock him into the next tier because there's that running threat, the advent of a little read option action here and there, naked bootleg stuff. Eckler's the real deal, guys. He is the real deal at running back. He can do everything you want. I see him as the clear leader in this group of four. And, if you walked away, let's say Eckler fell a little bit and you walked away with Ezekiel Elliott, Austin Eckler is your first two, I think you're riding really, really pretty in this draft. Chris Godwin, not Mike Evans, is the number one receiver in Tampa Bay. Mike Evans is a beast. Do not get me wrong. But Chris Godwin's better. Chris Godwin, as a pure receiver, he's a better route runner. He is better contested catcher. Mike Evans, yes, you can throw it up because he's 6'5", but his drop rate is very concerning for a receiver that should be able to physically mismatch with any corner in the league. Chris Godwin's a better receiver. He works the middle of the field. He plays slot. We know how Tom Brady loves the slot receivers. Shout out to Julian Edelman, Wes Welker, those guys. Chris Godwin, let's put it this way. If you miss out on Eckler, Godwin is the one that you want in this tier. This man, he could carry you. He could easily finish the year as wide receiver 1 in the entire league if he gets a little bit of touchdown luck. It's the one thing that's going to hold him back because you get down toward the end zone, Mike Evans, Rob Gronkowski, O.J. Howard, you're not looking at Chris Godwin in those situations. As well as we know Tom Brady-led teams like to run the ball close to the goal line. You're not looking for Chris Godwin. He gets a little bit of touchdown luck, and we're not even talking a bunch. If he could get 8 to 10, just the sheer number of yards he's going to rack up, the sheer number of receptions, he will firmly be a wide receiver 1. And I will put a stamp on that. He could easily outpace Julio Jones, Tyreek Hill, Devontae Adams, easily. However, at the same time, he's not going to carry the same consistency because those guys are going to find the end zone a little more consistently than Godwin. It depends on what you want. For me, give me Godwin all day, every day. If I walk out with, a solid running back, if I walk out with Derrick Henry, Chris Godwin, rounds 1 and 2, I'm feeling really good. Kenyon Drake, I expect Kenyon Drake to repeat what he did in the second half of the season following the Cardinals trade. Obviously, we have a small body of work to assess here. However, you got to remember there were times where Kenyon Drake looked fantastic in Miami. He just, and you'll see some of my Adam Gase bias later. He's had some issues with that. I definitely see Kenyon Drake repeating what he did. However, it's baked into his cost. He's being graded as a top tier, running back 2, even fringe running back 1 by some people. The cost is baked in, but I'm firm on that. Kenny Galladay, led the league in touchdowns from the receiver position, and Matt Stafford missed half the year. Galladay's the real deal, guys. He is unbelievable. He's still on a team that features, another big body target on the other side, Marvin Jones. I see Galladay being consistent. I see him being a step down from the receivers that we've already listed. But I could see him, if you went running back, let's say you did get the first pick, you got McCaffrey, and you got, say, Kenyon Drake. If Galladay's still there around 3, he could masquerade as a wide receiver 1 for your team, and you're looking really good. Kelsey Kittle, whichever one, guys, whichever one you feel most confident in. For me, the consistency of Mahomes over Garoppolo gives Kelsey the slight edge. However, I do think George Kittle's the better player. At this point in their careers, I think George Kittle's better. And if the quarterbacks were switched, I think Kittle is a firm second-round pick. But they're not switched. Pat Mahomes, Travis Kelce. Travis Kelce can win you weeks. George Kittle's never going to hurt you, But Travis Kelce can win you weeks. There are going to be weeks where George Kittle could get 3 to 4 touchdowns. And that's your opponent. It can't match that, even with Kittle, because even if Kittle goes off, he's not getting that from a Kyle Shanahan, Jimmy Garoppolo-led team. That, to me, that booming week, you might only get 1 to 2 of those from Travis Kelce in the year. But, again, Travis Kelce's not going to hurt you either. He's just going to win you 1 to 2 weeks, and that knocks Kelce above. Interestingly to note here, guys, when we get to tight ends and quarterbacks that we have for the first time, I'm waiting on both of them. I consistently wait on both of them. I consistently like to try to find different guys. And we'll kind of talk about some targets for that later when we get to the conclusion here. But I am waiting on this. I am also waiting on this, Lamar Jackson, Pat Mahomes. I believe it's Carabell who has Mahomes over Jackson. Lamar Jackson, if he does what he did last year, will be the first to ever do it. Completely understand that. He's still going to run wild, guys. This man is still going to – he's still getting – he could walk out of bed and get 800 yards. We're talking – that's 50 a game. Lamar Jackson, we're betting on him to do that at this point. Mahomes is going to throw like crazy. He'll sling it everywhere. He also has some underrated mobility, but Lamar Jackson, the rushing totals, especially the rushing touchdowns, obviously being worth 6 points. I'm leaning Lamar there. If you want a quarterback, if either of them are available in round 3, the value is there. If you're drafting them before that, the value is probably not there. But if you want them on your team, knock it out of the park. Here we have the Mike Evans tier, sandwiched by 2 receivers who I'd rather have on my team. Just that simple. Allen Robinson is a stud. This man is producing 1,000-yard seasons with 8 to 10 touchdowns, and his quarterbacks for his career have been Blake Bortles and Mitchell Trubisky. Somebody save this man. Whether it be Nick Foles, whether Nick Foles captures the Super Bowl magic, whether Mitch Trubisky throws better this year, whatever the case may be, somebody save Allen Robinson. This man is a stud. He's a stud, and there's nothing else that can be said about Allen Robinson. He is firmly a wide receiver too. He is someone who is consistently going to produce week in, week out. This man is a beast. His quarterback could put the ball on target consistently. He'd be a wide receiver 1. Allen Robinson is a guy that you want on your team. He is somebody who will help you win fantasy championships. Mike Evans, we kind of discussed, is the touchdown upside. It's also the jump ball upside for him. Tom Brady can still throw it deep, at least well enough. For a 6'5" receiver, you can't overlook that. DJ Moore, I think, is severely underrated. Teddy Bridgewater likes to throw short, produce after the catch. That really fits what DJ Moore likes to do. DJ Moore, not going to be surprising if he produces a little over 1,000 yards, probably 80 catches, and 6 to 8 touchdowns. I think the touchdowns downside is where Robinson and Evans take the cake over him. But DJ Moore, he's going to produce. 27, you're going to see Keenan Allen. Off the top of my head, Keenan Allen was ranked in the 40s by one of our rankers, as well as he was, late 30s, like 39. I have him at 27. Keenan Allen is another perennially underrated player. His ability to play inside and out, he's going to produce week in and week out. It is almost impossible to keep him down. He is a floor guy. He's not going to get a ton of touchdowns. We're talking 6 probably, maybe less, but right around 6 is where I'd suggest. But he's going to get 80 to 90 catches. He's going to get 1,100 yards. Solid wide receiver too. I would prefer him over Thielen 100%, and that's because I think, as we discussed earlier, Thielen's going to get the bracketed coverage. Chris Carson, underrated player, completely underrated. If you win a wide receiver in round 1 or 2, if you snag Carson in the 3rd, this is where the team's really starting to come together. Carson is a running back too. He's a beast. He is, and he's going to catch more. He caught more last year. Every year, add something new to his game. We're talking about 7th-round pick who held off a 1st-round pick in Rashad Penny consistently. Despite his fumbling issues, Pete Carroll still loves him because this man deserves it. This man works hard enough. He's going to come back this year. He's going to have a new element to his game. He's just – there's not enough good things I can say. A.J. Brown. A.J. Brown is what I hoped that Corey Davis would be. A.J. Brown, coming out of Mississippi, was a better wide receiver prospect than DK Metcalf. DK Metcalf's just a physical beast. He also gets Russell Wilson to throw the ball. A.J. Brown on the Titans, this man's their number one receiver. This man is going to be the Titans' version of Michael Thomas. What I mean by that, he's going to get force-fed the ball in ways that Michael Thomas does. Force-fed the ball. We're talking this man's going to approach 100 catches. And, I'm going to go ahead and do it. Highlight this man. Give me the yellow. He's underrated. He's completely underrated. He is a top-tier wide receiver. He deserves to be drafted at the turn of the fourth round. Again, I would draft him in the third. I think he's that good. If my other targets are gone, specifically talking about Chris Carson and Keenan Allen, I'm drafting A.J. Brown. He is that guy. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, I think this is a guy that people are going to reach for. He's going to get overhyped a little too much. He is in the Chiefs' offense. He is going to produce. He's going to be crazy. Don't get me wrong. But the price tag is going to be missing. If you're looking at it from an objective fantasy perspective, you'd rather have Edwards-Helaire or Chris Carson, and the answer is not close. It's Chris Carson. Robert Woods, every year, underrated player. With Sean McVay moving a little more toward 12 personnel to allow Tyler Higbee and Gerald Everett to be on the field at the same time, that hurts Cooper Kupp, not Robert Woods. Robert Woods is still going to produce. All right. You can't see it because of the page break. This is a new tier. Cortland Sutton, a little bit overrated. Odell Beckham, your mind is probably made up about OBJ at this point. Odell, he could be what he was last year. He could be what he was 2 years ago. Obviously, very different players. So much of that depends on Baker Mayfield. But I really expect the Browns to focus more with Stefanski on the running game, that I think it's going to end up baking in the risk with Odell. Fine with him, in round 4. It's probably not worth more than that. Le'Veon Bell, if it wasn't for Adam Gase, come on. I do expect the Jets to be a lot better offensively. I expect Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold obviously is better than the quarterbacks they were trotting out when Darnold was sick last year. Le'Veon Bell should benefit as a result, but the Jets still aren't very good, guys, and that's just the bottom line. And so Le'Veon Bell is going to suffer as a result. Leonard Fournette, the risk is baked in to his draft position, but I think he's a great target in this range because he's going to get the ball. He might not produce a ton, but he's going to get the ball. Todd Gurley's underrated, straight up. Yes, we all know about Todd Gurley's knees at this point. We all know that took him from literally the number one fantasy player to, we're ranking him at 38. We are ranking this man at 38. We are a little over a year away from Todd Gurley putting on a season for the ages. And we're ranking him at 38. The upside is clearly there. And for me, it's his pass-catching ability in the Falcons scheme that I think is really going to set him apart. I'm not talking he's going to rise back up the tiers, but for weeks we're going to see for weeks at a time we're going to see remnants of the old Todd Gurley. We're not going to see the craziness. We're not going to see the 25 touches plus. But he could get 16 to 18. He could be very productive with them. And with Ito Smith in the backfield as well, they have some good spell options. I expect him, obviously hoping on the knee, but I'm drafting him with that risk. Drafting Todd Gurley with that risk. Melvin Gordon on the Broncos. This man was drafted to make Drew Lock's life easier and his development process easier. Buy into that. Drew Lock is pretty good. He's pretty good. You got to see more of it, but he looked really good. He's got a ton of options. Drafting Jerry Jeudy Pairing him with Cortland Sutton, Noah Fant, who we will get to later, Melvin Gordon. Melvin Gordon, buy into that. David Johnson, I think, is a little underrated. However, I'm not bumping him way up here, so I'm fine with him where he is. I'm just pointing him out and saying drafting David Johnson is good. You're going to see Amari Cooper is way down for me versus some other people ranking. And I think there's a strong argument to be made that Amari Cooper is the third best receiver on that team. Yes, that means behind Michael Gallup and CeeDee Lamb. Amari Cooper's drop rate since he came into the league is extremely problematic for a receiver. Extremely. You can't be dropping passes like that as a wide receiver, specifically not a number one. I think Michael Gallup has already proven that he is a better receiver than Amari Cooper. It's just Amari Cooper's a better route runner, so he gets open more. CeeDee Lamb, I think that's going to spread it around. I don't want any part of it. I don't want any part of Amari Cooper because I'm ranking him so low versus other people. You can pretty much guess that he won't be on any of my teams. Somebody else is going to reach for him before I would, and that's very true. I'm not a fan of Amari. I'm not, and it's nothing. I won't say it's nothing to do with his talent. It's a lot to do with his inability to catch, but it is more to do with how good Michael Gallup and CeeDee Lamb are. And I think CeeDee Lamb is the real deal. I do think Jerry Jeudy's the better receiver coming out of this year, but CeeDee Lamb was right behind him. Tyler Lockett, I don't really understand why Tyler Lockett is seen lower than this. I can understand the name recognition, Juju Smith-Schuster, Amari Cooper. Tyler Lockett, he's a beast. He is a beast. He produces in ways that should not be possible for a guy of his stature and a guy of his ability. But he is a beast. And I would not fault you at all for drafting him over Amari Cooper. Not at all. I could wake up today and say Amari's better. I could wake up tomorrow and say Lockett's better. It really is neck and neck. T.Y. Hilton, a little dangerous, little bit dangerous, but not so much that you're not drafting him, by round 5 because he is the number one target on a team. Number one targets in PPR have fantastic value. So you're drafting him, for example, over guys like Calvin Ridley and Cooper Kupp because they're not number one options. And so that in and of itself has a lot of value. Mark Andrews, who's our next tight end. Mark Andrews is great value here. Mark Andrews in the 5th, great value. By this point, let's say you're doing my strategy. You've got 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers. Mark Andrews is fantastic value if he is available. Terry McLaurin. Terry McLaurin is the 2nd best rookie from last year behind A.J. Brown. Rookie wide receiver, that is, not rookie overall. I like Terry McLaurin. I don't like Dwayne Haskins. Terry McLaurin can produce with him, though. So Terry McLaurin. This tier, in general, this is fantastic value right here. We're talking 5th round. These guys all have fantastic value. Any of them available, I'm snatching them up. I'm not thinking twice about it. If there's 2 that I got to debate, it might fall down to my team. For example, if I have stud running backs and I need upside at wide receiver, if I need the upside, I'm probably shooting for Tyler Lockett. I think Tyler Lockett's upside is probably the best. If I have really good floors already at receiver, really good upside, I don't really need it. I need a floor. One of these 2, McLaurin or Ridley, both have really, really good floors. Ridley is a second option, obviously. That is the difference between the 3 above him. But again, as we discussed with Julio Jones gets the respect he deserves. Calvin Ridley gets one-on-one, and that man will feast on that. This tier, yikes. I've got David Montgomery way higher than anybody else. There are question marks with Devin Singletary. There are question marks. Other running backs in his backfield. David Montgomery, he's got Tariq Cohen to catch passes, but Tariq Cohen's not stealing goal line carries versus, not only just the running backs, Josh Allen. Josh Allen's going to steal carries. David Montgomery, to me, severely underrated player. I'm more looking at him at the turn. I would love to get him in the 6th is kind of what I'm saying. But if I'm tail end of round 5, these guys right ahead of him are gone. If I need running back help, I'm definitely looking at David Montgomery before Devin Singletary. Another fantastic area right here. J.K. Dobbins drafting by the Ravens is absolutely fantastic if you're a dynasty player. J.K. Dobbins, give me all the J.K. Dobbins in Dynasty. We're talking about 1 year, and Mark Ingram has been an underrated running back for a decade now. That's just kind of the way it is. Give me all the Mark Ingram. Give me all the Mark Ingram in round 6. This man will produce like a solid running back too. Solid. And that includes with J.K. Dobbins. Includes with him in the mix. It includes with Lamar Jackson running crazy. Mark Ingram is being drafted like a flex play, like a running back 4 even. He's running back 2. Solid floor. Give me all the Mark Ingram. All the Mark Ingram I can handle. Metcalf. If Metcalf adds to his route tree over the summer, he could surpass Tyler Lockett as the number 1 option because his physical traits are immaculate. Of course, we all know this by now. Again, give me all the DK Metcalf. Michael Gallup, I'll use the expression full stop here. Full stop. He's better than Amari Cooper. He's a better wide receiver. He might not be treated like it. He's definitely not paid like it. So Amari might get the ball, but he's a better wide receiver. Again, give me all the Michael Gallup. Zach Ertz is here because if I really wanted a tight end, Zach Ertz is great value here. 9 times out of 10, I'm getting one of these 3 guys. It's just the value is too much. We're talking running back 2, wide receiver 2s, and we're getting them in the 6th round. It's insane. It's insane. The value's crazy. Devontae Parker, I'm buying the Devontae Parker, post-breakout hype. Adam Gase is gone, guys. He's not there anymore. He's in New York. Devontae Parker, buying that hype. I really am. Whether it's Fitzpatrick under center, whether it's Tua, I'm buying Devontae Parker. I'm buying him slightly after Metcalf and Gallup, despite the fact he's the number 1 option. But I'm buying some Devontae Parker. Kareem Hunt, arguably the most valuable handcuff in the entire league. I think the arguments to be made behind him are probably Dobbins and Latavius Murray. But Kareem Hunt, valuable handcuff, valuable standalone option. That is why I'm fine drafting him, in the 6th round. Jarvis Landry. Jarvis Landry's pretty good, guys. If you hadn't noticed, he's a really good PPR player. He's not going to win you weeks, but he's not going to lose you weeks. Solid flex, solid wide receiver 3. If you want the depth, there you go. Tyler Boyd is a little dangerous. If A.J. Green plays, he's probably not going to be the A.J. Green of old. I completely understand that. But he's still A.J. Green. He's still A.J. Green. And that alone, he could surpass Tyler Boyd as the number 1 option. And Tyler Boyd is a number 2 option in a game in an attack that I expect to be led by the running game and Joe Mixon. I'm not feeling it. I'm fading Tyler Boyd quite a lot. I do think he's good value here, 7th round turn, but I'm fading him. 4 quarterbacks. Despite all the wide receiver question marks, Dak Prescott has weapons on weapons on weapons. And as you notice with all 4 of these guys, he can also run. I'm loving Dak Prescott in round 7. This is why I'm not drafting Lamar Jackson or Pat Mahomes, because if any of these guys are here in round 7, I'm loving it. Loving it. I expect Kyler Murray to get a little hype. Russell Wilson, perennially underrated quarterback, especially for fantasy purposes, also in real life, just fun fact. Deshaun Watson, I think the loss of DeAndre Hopkins hurts him, but what it does is it knocks him into this tier where we can draft him in round 7 and feel really, really good about that value because he didn't stop being a good quarterback because he lost his number 1 receiver. The loss of DeAndre Hopkins is going to hurt. Do not get me wrong. But he's still got weapons. And I do expect the addition of David Johnson to be a help there, as well as Brandon Cooks. I like all 4 of these guys, any 4. If you like one better than the other, if you really buy the Hopkins-Murray connection, if you buy Metcalf going to take another step, if you buy CeeDee Lamb as the best rookie or even the second best rookie and you want some Dak Prescott, I'm fine with any of them. I think they're all great values. Again, this set right here is why I'm not drafting Mahomes or Jackson. Darren Waller. I'm going to highlight Darren Waller in blue here. I'm going to highlight Darren Waller in blue. Again, thinking about it later, it's a little risky. A little risky for Darren Waller here. I'm fine with him I would just prefer to draft later and have, 2 tight ends and rotate kind of thing. I think with Isaiah Simmons, gone are the days that we just start whoever playing the Cardinals. But at the same time, something like that should emerge. And just in general, I would rather – I honestly would rather stream tight ends to get this value when I could get, you look who's right above him, right below him. I'm probably stretching for more depth here. Stephon Diggs, I think Stephon Diggs is going to be the Bills' number 1 target. I think Josh Allen is underrated. We'll get to Josh Allen in a little bit. But John Brown's not going away. John Brown's still there. And he's going to take enough targets away that Stephon Diggs is right where he belongs here as a low-end wide receiver 3, high-end wide receiver 4. A.J. Green again. A.J. Green depends on how you feel about his injuries, guys. If you feel, he's healthy, I don't even care if he's going to be the same player. If you feel he's healthy, this is way too low. If you're worried about him not being healthy or getting hurt again, he's too high. We're baking in the risk here. Round 7, we are good here. We are good with A.J. Green. Julian Edelman's still going to be Julian Edelman. Cam Newton under center or Jared Stidham. I firmly expect it to be Newton, by the way, but, just for sake of argument, Julian Edelman's still Julian Edelman. He's going to produce fairly well. Ronald Jones. I have as much Keyshawn Vaughn hype as the next guy. Ronald Jones is the running back you want in Tampa, at least for this year. If I'm Dynasty, again, give me all Keyshawn Vaughn, baby. Raheem Mostert, this is not his trade request / contract renegotiation that makes him dangerous. Obviously, that's a risk, but we all know that. This man plays for Kyle Shanahan. That in and of itself is risky. Do we want Raheem Mostert on our team? Look, man, if I can get him in the 8th, okay. Before that, no. We could immediately flip, and this man could be force-feeding Tevin Coleman the ball. We could see Jerick McKinnon make a career resurgence, if he's finally healthy. There's way too much risk with Raheem Mostert. And really any 49ers running back, I'll draft him if I get him a round lower than his projected. That's about where I sit. And again, that goes for all 49ers running backs. They're all good. Their talent is not the problem. Their scheme and fantasy is the problem. Jonathan Taylor. You look at Eric Carabell, this man's rated in the 40s. I agree, Jonathan Taylor is that good. However, Marlon Mack is still there. Marlon Mack's not going away. Naheem Hines is still there. Naheem Hines is not going away. We are looking at a ridiculously talented running back by committee. Great for NFL. Terrible for fantasy. Terrible. Tyler Higbee. This is what I was saying. I'd rather draft somebody like that than Darren Waller. I love Tyler Higbee. I completely buy his use at the end. I think the 12 personnel comment from Sean McVay is more interested in balancing the field, getting Gerald Everett on the field, who is a very good player in his own right. It's about opening up more running lanes for their rushing attack, which unfortunately I expect to be by committee. But Jonathan Taylor. Give me all the Jonathan Taylor. If I get him in round 8, give him to me. Excuse me, Tyler Higbee. Got a little check. Give me either of these guys. Deebo Samuel. The problem with Deebo Samuel, he might be the number 1 receiver, but he's always going to be the number 2 option behind Kittle. And that's kind of it. Josh Allen, as you notice, underrated. He's being drafted like a fringe QB1, where he's more like a 12 team league quarterback, or a bottom tier QB1 in standard in 10 team. His running ability, his rushing touchdowns, his deep ball with Diggs and John Brown. Give me a lot of Josh Allen. The value is definitely there with this pick. It's a great tier right here. Great players here. Marquise Brown, literally the only knock on Marquise Brown is it's a PPR league, and this man's probably not catching over 5 passes a game consistently. Doesn't matter. Marquise Brown's a great value here. Jordan Howard, perennially underrated running back. Not going to catch a ton of passes, but that's okay. That's okay. We want him for, the pushing 1,000 yards, the pushing 8 to 10 touchdowns. That's what we want Jordan Howard for. Evan Ingram, if Evan Ingram's healthy, top 5. Evan Ingram can't stay healthy. I'm baking in the risk here, and that is why I'd rather have Tyler Higbee over Evan Ingram. Simply put, health. Health is the reason. John Brown, kind of just talked about him with Josh Allen. John Brown's not going away. Stephon Diggs is going to take a lot of targets from him, but John Brown's not going away. I'm fine with him as, a dart throw play on a given week. If you got 2 wide receivers on bye, or you have 1 receiver on bye and your typical flex is on bye, playing him as a flex, fine with it. DeAndre Swift is dangerous. I think Kerryon Johnson is fantastic. He's just been hurt. DeAndre Swift is definitely talented, but in my opinion was not the top running back in the draft. For the record, it wasn't Clyde Edwards-Helaire either. It was J.K. Dobbins, who we'll see down here. Just below him, the difference is opportunity. The Lions have more opportunity than the Ravens. That's why DeAndre Swift is higher, but very dangerous. Sterling Shepard, very underrated player. I think the Giants are going to spread the ball around, which is why we will get to Daniel Jones in just a bit. But Daniel Jones is the quarterback I'm targeting after Josh Allen. Cam Akers, dangerous simply because I expect it to be by committee. His risk of being in a committee with Darrell Henderson is not baked into his typical draft. It is here. If you're getting him here, I think you're fine because he has a chance to completely run away with that job. But I don't think Darrell Henderson's ever going to go away. His burst really suits what Sean McVay likes to do with his zone running. Cam Akers, just be cautious there. James White, pass-catching running back. That's always valuable in fantasy. Cam Newton's coming from an offense with Christian McCaffrey. I'm not saying James White is that style of player, but he's definitely, the check down option that Cam is used to having. The problem, of course, Patriots running back. If you'll probably notice here in a bit, Sony Michel's not even ranked in my top 100. Doesn't mean Sony Michel doesn't have value. Doesn't mean he's not a good player. It's just a Patriots running back. Dobbins to me, I know we mentioned earlier handcuffs. Dobbins belongs in that category. If Mark Ingram were to get hurt for any reason, give me all the J.K. Dobbins, all the shares of J.K. Dobbins. I truly expect him to be a beast at the NFL level. If I'm a dynasty player, which I am, I'm arguing. You'll see this. You'll see this when we get to dynasty rookie ratings. I'll release a video later. He's a first-round pick to me in dynasty, and not just first round. Haven't made the list yet. He's probably top 5. Probably top 5. Have to debate, but give me all the J.K. Dobbins. Man, this man is a beast. Darius Geis, post-breakout hype. There's all the risk associated with Darius Geis is baked into this draft stock. If you're getting him in the 9th round, go for it. Darius Slayton, I think, is a very underrated player. If I could highlight him green and yellow, I would. Latavius Murray, great handcuff. Damian Williams, great handcuff. Darius Slayton is a target I'd like here. Another quarterback tier list. Daniel Jones, baby. Give me the Daniel Jones. I think the Giants' offense is going to be a lot better than people expect. These two, in a typical draft, they're probably not here at this point. They're probably not here at, round 10. At this turn, this 9th, 10 round turn, probably not here. If they're not, Daniel Jones, if I still need a quarterback. Carson Wentz, it's the injuries. If he's healthy, I'd love him. He'd be way higher than this. But unfortunately, can't stay healthy. If I'm drafting a low-tier quarterback one, if I'm trying to fill out the rest of my team, let's say I drafted a tight end early and got, let's say I went running back, tight end, wide receiver, running back. Daniel Jones is where I'm starting to look in this area. I think Deontay Johnson is a little underrated, as is Brandon Cooks. Both of them in their offenses, fantastic. Justin Jefferson, I do rank him ahead of CeeDee Lamb as rookie wide receiver simply because of opportunity cost here. Emmanuel Sanders and Jared Cook, the reason they're ranked so lowly here is because I expect them to eat into each other. Michael Thomas is mouth number 1. Alvin Kamara is mouth number 2. And the Saints for 2 years now have really been a 3-headed monster of Breeze, Kamara, Thomas. Jared Cook provided some substance last year. It was pretty good, low tier tight end 1, they're going to eat into each other. Breeze is going to spread the ball around, so that's going to hurt both of them. Hayden Hurst, I think, is a good tight end flyer, as is Dallas Goedert. Dallas Goedert is the very rare standalone and handcuff tight end. Dallas Goedert, especially if Carson Wentz can stay healthy. Give me the Dallas Goedert. And then Mike Williams, big-bodied receiver, especially if Justin Herbert is named the starter. Justin Herbert's named the starter, knock him up a round. So that is the top 100. Honorable mentions that I think deserve to be on your radar. Already discussed Noah Fant a little bit. Noah Fant deserves to be on your radar. If you're throwing darts at tight end at the end, Hayden Hurst, Dallas Goedert, Noah Fant, keep those guys in the same tier. Eric Ebron deserves to be in that tier as well. Some other dart throws that need to be here. Boston Scott, running back from Philadelphia, which I just noticed Miles Sanders is not on this list. Miles Sanders is risky. Putting Miles Sanders in this tier right here. So we're going to boop, Miles Sanders. And I'm also going to give him the risky coat. So now we're at 101 players. Miles Sanders, completely neglected him. Apologize for that if you're an Eagles fan. Miles Sanders is a great real-life player. I'm worried about him in fantasy. I'm worried about him being the number one option when it's really just going to be more of a committee approach. Let's see. Some other guys that need to be on the radar. Wide receiver wise, let's think here for a second. I like CeeDee Lamb. I do. I like Jerry Jeudy. Alshon Jeffrey, who's not on this list. Alshon Jeffrey, to me, he gets value because he's number one on the Eagles, but at the same time, his injury history worries me. The Eagles receiver core in general is something I tend to stay away from due to the inconsistencies, but somebody's got to catch passes. Alshon Jeffrey deserves a mention there. This is by no means the comprehensive list. This is by no means every single player of every single thing. If you notice, obviously there's no defense. There's no kicker. Please don't draft defense and kicker until the last 2 rounds. Maybe the last 3 if you decide, you really want to nab, for example, the Cardinals defense. Yes, I said Cardinals. I expect them to be pretty good between sacks and turnovers forced. I like them. The Chargers as well. I like the Chargers defense. The problem with defense is you just never know. Like the 49ers, they're probably not going to be what they were this year. Kickers, same way, except for Justin Tucker. Justin Tucker is arguably the best kicker the game's ever seen. So this is it. As I said, there'll be a Dynasty video a little bit later. But if you guys have questions, if you guys want to hear some other stuff, leave it down in the comments, and we'll try to get back to you. Thank you, and see you later, YouTube.